I don't really think it needs to be said that Donald Trump has won the Republican nomination by clinching the delegate majority. It seems kind of like, we already know this. Joe Biden has secured the Democrat nomination. Donald Trump has now secured the Republican nomination. But I do feel it's still kind of an obligation to give you the latest milestone in the 2024 race, despite the fact we know where this is going. And that's the big news. Donald Trump clinches delegate majority for GOP nomination. NBC News projects setting up Biden rematch. President Joe Biden clinched the Democratic nomination with a delegate majority earlier Tuesday night. NBC News projects. You don't really need much of a story to break this down. But what I do see as being interesting here is what we can expect in November. And right now, you got a couple stories pertaining to the election that I think are relevant. Elon Musk posting a clip, I believe it's from August of 2023, where Joe Rogan says he's basically going to be voting for Donald Trump. Now, I don't think Rogan has ever come out explicitly saying Donald Trump is my candidate. I will be voting for Donald Trump. But he's effectively said this, and we'll play the clip. He also jokingly said, and I don't even know if it was jokingly, it was like a half joke, something about if you want to save the country, vote Republican. And talking about there's a reason why so many people have switched from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. But most importantly, Gen Z. Now, a lot of people rag on Gen Z and older people. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's millennials you have a problem with. Millennials are the lost generation. Millennials are the woke. They're the people leading these companies to bankruptcy. They are the ones who don't want to work. And I'm not saying that all of Gen Z is based or good, but Gen Z overwhelmingly is realizing what's going on. There was this poll that asked individuals of each generation how much money they would need to be happy. And silent generation said, 100K, I don't know. Boomers said, I don't know, 100K. Gen X said, probably 100K. Gen Z, you notice I skipped the millennials, said probably 100K. And millennials said 500,000. Wow. Something is up with millennials. Something is up. Perhaps this lost generation, which emerged in it could be the early stages of social media algorithms, created this warped generation. I'm a millennial. I'm allowed to say it. I can brag on my own generation. Not every millennial is bad. There's a handful of good ones. Vivek Ramaswamy, for instance, is a millennial. I'm a millennial. There are good millennials. But Gen Z is pretty based. And it's fascinating when we see this is a group of people that have experienced the worst of millennial excesses and laziness and entitlement. Gen Z, as I often say, is supposed to inherit this system. We every generation does. It's a fascinating experience, truth be told, this point in my life when it really is kind of wild. It gets easy. It really does. Not easy in terms of like you can sail through life. I'm saying, generally speaking, on average, life gets easier for the average person. What I mean to say is not everybody is going to experience this. Some people's lives will get a lot harder. But typically, as you start to get older and you become those who are running the system, then maybe easier isn't the right word. You get more control and more leeway, though things could end up being a big challenge, especially, it's not always easy to be in a leadership position. Gen Z is not getting this. We talked last night on Timcast IRL about how we're in a gerontocracy. Kurt Mills called it. I believe he said gerontocracy. Rule by the old. They refuse to give up power. And I think Gen Z is bearing the worst of this. So the silent generation, typically their kids are Gen Xers. But there's an overlap. So, some silent generation had boomer parents. Some boomers had Gen Xers. But for the most part, it's like silent is Gen X. Boomers have millennials. And here we are. Gen Xers, I think Gen X is truly the lost generation. And it's the reason I say that is because they're mostly fine. Mostly fine. For real. Boomers, a lot of great boomers. Mad respect. You know what I mean? They made Star Trek The Next Generation. So I will always deeply respect a lot of what boomers have done. But there's this circular logic. Boomers treat millennials like children. Gen X is kind of just ignored because I got to be honest, Gen Xers, y'all are pretty much okay, for real. You work, you live, you do your thing, and it's kind of, okay, well, you're fine. You're not really ragging on anybody. You're getting by. But boomers treat millennials like children. Even a few years ago, there was this really funny article that said something like, why are millennials doing this or whatever? And a bunch of millennials were tweeting like, we're 40. We're 40 years old. Stop treating us like we are children. But the reality is, many of these millennials deserve to be treated like children. And whose fault is it? Man, I don't know. Society, I guess. So what ends up happening now, in my view, younger people in Gen Z are looking at the failures of millennials and realizing, there's an odd man out here. You look at the silent generation, sure, they've got their problems, but they worked, they did their thing. You've got the boomer generation, and sure, they work, but they got their problems. And you've got millennials who seem to be overwhelmingly entitled, lazy, overly woke, easily offended, easily agitated. And I think a lot of Gen Z see that and they're just like, someone sticks out. And what ends up happening, I guess, is Gen Z becomes more based. So as we begin to predict what may happen, and I want to show you that Rogan clip, I do want to point this out from Newsweek. Gen Z loves Donald Trump more than any other age group. Are you kidding me? Donald Trump is, I believe he's a boomer. He's an early boomer. We went over this last night. Let me grab Donald Trump's birthday. I think what was his birthday? Was it 46, which means he's the first year of being a boomer. So he's a very early boomer. That's funny, right? I thought, he'd be silent, but Joe Biden is silent generation. The fascinating thing is that this guy, Kurt Mills, yesterday was saying that I think it was Clinton. Was it Clinton, Bush, and Trump were all born within 60 days of each other or something like that? I don't know. Probably get the names wrong. But it's funny to see a guy this old, and Gen Z loves him more than anybody else. Take a look at this. Donald Trump has a higher approval rating among young adults than any other age demographic, according to a poll. And I'm honestly not surprised. A Harvard Caps Harris survey of more than 2,000 registered voters showed that 57% approved of the job the Republican did as president. When the results are broken down further, they show that almost 2/3, 64% of voters in Gen Z approved of Trump's job as president. The age range of this demographic means some respondents were children during Trump's time in office from 2017 to 2021. However, the results could be yet another warning sign for President Joe Biden's re-election hopes. In 2020, young voters were crucial in Biden's victory, as Gen Z and millennials supported Biden over Trump by margins of about 20%. Yes, but that doesn't matter. They say record-breaking turnout. That doesn't matter because they still don't come out in large numbers. 20% of 50 people is still just 10 people, okay? So you can be like, wow, 20% of this demographic voted. Yeah, but they don't come out in large enough numbers. Retirees, now they come out. The age group with the second highest approval rating of Trump's presidency were respondents aged 55 to 64, followed by age 25 to 34 and 35 to 44. That's really, really fascinating. You'd think millennials would be on the back end, but they are on the back end. You'd think they'd be the bottom. But sure enough, many people are now coming around to Joe Biden. A separate poll released Monday by Axios Generation Lab also showed that Biden is only slightly favored over Trump by voters between ages 18 and 34, with 52% choosing the president and 48% choosing Trump. We don't know enough yet. Neil O'Brien, a political scientist at the University of Oregon, told Axios, but this idea that young people are going to keep populating in the Democratic Party, there's some question marks around that. And they say that they reached out to Trump and Biden's campaign for comment. Whatever, man. And then we have this. It's a short clip. And perhaps this is why the younger generation is now shifting towards Trump, because Joe Biden is broken and he's a liar. I want to play this clip for you. And then, yes, we will get into the what Joe Rogan has to say. What do we have here? Yeah. This is a clip from MAGA War Room that speaks for itself.
Thank you, everyone. I did not share classified information. I did not share it. With your ghostwriter? With my ghostwriter, I did not. Guarantee you did not.
We also identified other recorded conversations during which Mr. Biden read classified information aloud to his ghostwriter.
That's just one simple clip from the Robert Hur testimony. I think Gen Z is awake. They're wondering why they're being ripped off. They're wondering why it is they can't afford to live, why they can't have families, why they are working 40 hours a week for minimal pay. And you know what happens? Is the Democrats kept saying things like, we need to raise the minimum wage, things like that. That's why you're not getting paid enough. It's the corporations that are stealing from you. And then one day, some Gen Z kid was like, you just gave a bunch of non-citizens free hotel rooms, free food, debit cards with cash on it. And some of these people are drug dealers and rapists and child traffickers. And I can't even afford a place to live. Yeah. I think that was a big smack in the face to many in Gen Z. That's brutal, too. It's hard to buy a house. I was talking to my ma, and she was talking about the price of homes when she first bought a house and things like that. And I was like, based on the numbers that, she was talking about, you would need to make like $150,000 a year to buy a small, like, suburban house in a city these days. And that's just not a salary that a young person is making these days. I mean, 20-something-year-olds are not making anywhere near that. How can they afford to buy a home, let alone have a family? Now, sure, it's possible, but the government's got to stop printing and spending. See, I mixed them together as sprinting. They should stop sprinting as fast as possible towards the Federal Reserve to bail themselves out. We need to end these foreign wars that are wasting our money and allocate them towards the production of goods and services in this country, which will benefit our citizenry, secure our border, and give Gen Z an opportunity to actually inherit the system. Ultimately, though, I think a big problem is that boomers hold a disproportionate amount of wealth, so nobody else can get in. This is the gerontocracy that Kurt Mills was talking about. The average age of Congress, of the House, is 58. This was what someone told us last night on IRL. Could be wrong, but 58. And of the Senate is 65. It's unheard of. The average age of an American is 38 years old. Now, that's crazy. I just turned 38. Wow. So we're the big market demographic, huh? Oh, boy, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Special counsel Robert Hur says he did not exonerate Biden, claims president lied about sharing and locking classified documents. Here we go. Well, my friends, what can we expect in this post from the post-millennial? Elon posts video of Joe Rogan saying, I'd vote for Trump before I'd vote for Biden. I want to stress this. These things make us feel warm and fuzzy inside. I'm saying all these, I'm whispering sweet nothings into your ears. Gen Z is based, Tim says. It guarantees you nothing. There is likely a shadow campaign happening right now. There is no guarantee that if Donald Trump wins and the Republicans secure the House and the Senate, if they do, that anything positive happens. Seriously. I think Trump is our best bet. No new wars. I will say it. I will scream it to the high to the high heavens. When people are like, "How could you possibly vote for Donald Trump?" I'm like, "No new wars." And they're like, "Yeah, but he did this, he did that, he did this, he did otherwise." And I was like, yeah. No new wars. You want me to tell you about it? You come to me, my friends, and you say, "But Donald Trump said grab him by the pussy." And I'm going to be like, yeah, no new wars. I literally don't care. Trump could come out and just like literally go on a foul-mouthed tirade, just snarled face, that woman is such a disgusting piece of human trash, and just rag in the most vile, despicable ways. And I'd be like, how about that? And you'd be like, but he's so nasty. He's so mean, his tweets. And I'd be like, no new wars. No new wars. And, Dave Smith says, yeah, but a lot of the old ones. And I'm like, what does that mean? Come on, Dave. No, Dave and I have an understanding in this regard. Of course, for those that don't know, comedian, libertarian guy. I don't think it's fair. I'm not a revolutionary. I'm a reformer. I don't think it's fair to come out and be like, Donald Trump inherited an imperfect system, so it's his fault that system persisted. The idea that a single man as president is going to revolutionize the entirety of the federal government. I mean, come on. Trump can't just end all of these wars, but he did do a good job in trying to stop them. Not only did we get no new wars, but Donald Trump tries to withdraw our troops from Afghanistan, sets the timeline. Biden screwed that one up. Tries to get our troops out of Syria. They lied to keep them in. Trump very much was saying, we'll sell them weapons, we'll make money, but we are not to be involved, and NATO needs to pay their fair share. And I'm like, I'll take it. It's this idea that we're living in a nasty, moldy, rotten house. And every time a new president comes in, They spatter garbage on the walls and they make it worse. And Trump comes in, and for the first time, we get a president who is not further destroying the house we live in. And he is actually cleaning a little bit of it up, but having a hard time of it. And by the time he leaves, the way I see it is these libertarians, like, Dave, the way I see it is he's saying, yeah, but a lot of the old wars. And I'm like, so we have these people destroying our home. We elect a guy who comes in and says, I'm going to stop the process of destroying of the destruction of the home, and I'm going to try and clean it a little bit. And you're like, the house was still messy under Trump. And I'm like, but he was cleaning up. You know what I mean? Certainly, there were dishes to be had. There was meals to be had. There was stoves to be used. And so the house, it's not like it was perfect, but it seemed like a generally positive direction. So I say, I don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't know that Trump wins. A lot of these things are whispering sweet nothings, as I would describe it. But Elon Musk just posted this clip, and I will play it for you now.
I would vote for Trump before I'd vote for Biden, just because I think with Biden, like, he's gone. Like, he's gone. You're going to be relying on his cabinet, and I knew his cabinet would be this fucking sideshow of diversity, and which is exactly what it is. You can't have those kind of people running a Ben and Jerry's. You certainly can't have those kind of people running the fucking most powerful government the world's ever known. It's nuts. It's nuts.
That's why Joe Rogan is one of the best, because that was wit right there. I know there's no H in the word, but I like saying it that way. You can't have them running a Ben and Jerry's, let alone the most powerful country in the world. Yeah, and that's where we are, and that's where we are. There's a lot of stuff happening in terms of electoral politics this year, and I want to believe that Donald Trump will win. I want to believe that when he does, he will bring down the hammer. I'm not convinced. What I see with Republicans is it's fascinating. We had this debate last night on the members only show at Timcast IRL. So go to timcast.com, click join us, watch the members only show. Argued pretty debated heavily with Kurt Mills. And my issue is Republicans don't take strong moral stances. They're terrified. They are terrified to take a strong moral stance. I don't know why that is. Some do. The MAGA party, which is few in Congress, are very much willing to outright declare their moral worldview, and I respect it. Democrats have taken this extreme moral attack position. That is to say, they will come out and unashamedly say, you should be allowed to get an abortion at the point of birth. And they'll say it to my face on this show. They believe that if a baby is about to be born, the woman should be allowed to kill it. And I'm like, that's crazy. Perhaps you should, Republicans, assert your moral position. Many do. Don't get me wrong. They say, Seamus Coughlin, good friend, points out all the time it should be banned nationwide. Absolutely would love to see it banned. I respect that. Maybe it's about time people on the right actually started to assert a moral position instead of offering nothing. What do I mean by that? How about this? Here's a challenge for me. I and probably why the show's successful is I am a moderate. I am a centrist. And there is no right wing. It does not exist. There are conservatives who will put on moderate masks, scared that they will lose. Maybe it's to their benefit to a certain degree because now moderates are certainly siding with them. And fine, fair point. But when we look at Twitter, the example I always give is misgendering policy. Why does X not have a policy that says if you use a pronoun that doesn't align with biological sex, you will be banned? Why not that? Oh, well, that's free speech. Well, then why the inverse? Why will you be banned for not using someone's preferred pronoun? Right? It's weird, isn't it? One side says you should be forced with threat of expulsion to use pronouns that don't align with a person's biological sex. And the other side says slow down their Democrats. Perhaps if we had a Republican Party that actually had moral frameworks behind them, we might actually have more victories when it comes to the likes of, Joe Biden. Now, the argument that Kurt had, and perhaps he's correct, is that the Democrats' incessant moralizing, grandstanding, and abuse of the legal system has actually cost them support and is resulting in Republicans winning because they seem to be the more reasonable kind. Maybe. But there is a video that I'm going to record a segment on for later where two young women are being asked about genders, and one woman says, stop, don't say that on camera. Just stop. Okay, we're going to leave. Some people think the video is fake, but it doesn't matter if it's fake or not because it represents something that really does happen. A large amount of people in this country support Donald Trump. They won't say it. I know celebrities, professional athletes, musicians who support Trump but refuse to say it publicly. Why? They don't want to get their skulls bashed in by the far left because Democrats and the far left rule through terror and violence and the abuse of the system. So I tell you this. I will remain reserved, I suppose. Maybe the reason Trump is doing so well is because people are tired of living in terror. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to be told what to think and how to act. They don't want to be threatened with violence from Antifa on the far left. So maybe they're going to say, fine, I'll take Donald Trump. Maybe. Or maybe Democrats will once again stage a shadow campaign. And through threats of violence and force and abuse of the system, there will be no accountability. There will be no adjudication. Not a single judge will dare stand up. Not a single member of the Supreme Court, well, save Clarence Thomas and Alito. They'll say, I don't want to be involved in this because the far left will threaten them with death. Republicans won't. And so the terror of the left will result in a shadow campaign where Joe Biden somehow manages to win again. Nothing will change. And then the country just erupts in fury. I don't know. Part of me thinks the right needs to actually just come out and start saying, like, here's what we want to happen. They don't do it. And they're so terrified. I love this. You know, I told you guys about how I tweeted two things. It should be illegal to believe in God and it should be illegal not to believe in God. Or I wrote, it should be illegal to not believe in God. And then I tweeted on Twitter and then I tweeted again, believing in God should be illegal. Zero sum, two contradictory statements. This, in essence, is what I refer to as coloring the water. If someone comes to you and tells you, Tim Pool said it should be illegal if you don't believe in God or something like that, you know that they're being lied to from the far left. Someone selectively chose one tweet and did not actually share the full context, which is I tweeted a zero-sum contradictory set of statements. The reason being two things. One, you can see their bias. Two, in the event someone comes to you and says, Tim Pool said this thing, you need only Google search the opposite thing I said, and you can say to them, no, you're wrong. He said the opposite. He said it should be illegal to believe in God. Huh? And then you can show them the inverse. And if you get someone on the right saying, Tim Pool thinks it should be illegal to believe in God, you'd be like, no, he didn't. He said it should be illegal to not believe in God. You can show them the inverse. And that will expose to them the fractured reality they live in. Scott Adams says it's one movie, or I'm sorry, it's one screen with two movies playing. He's correct. Well, I thought, I've done this before, but here's one way to break that, to manifest it perfectly. So that you, when you encounter someone who's watching the blue screen or the red screen, and they truly believe they saw this movie, you can say, I Googled it. He said the opposite. And they're going to say, I don't understand. You know, the Young Turks told me Tim said this, not this. Like, well, here he tweeted the other thing. And so why are they only showing you one? Or better, you don't even need to explain. Just be like, nah, he said the opposite. You were lied to. Because I said both. It's zero sum. Coloring the water. I don't know ultimately where we end up. I kind of trailed off on that point, but I think that kind of exemplifies where we are in these two different realities. We may be living in this bubble where everything sounds like it's going to be good, but they will engage in their shadow campaign and polls are meaningless. And so my concern is without the right actually willing to stand up and take a moral position, I guess the point ultimately is this. The reason why I bring that up is that people are terrified of what the left will say about them. They will say something and then the left will take you out of context and lie about what you said and the right will panic. Why? Why not just laugh and say the cult members live in a crackpot reality and just keep on keeping on? Why? You know, I'm wondering if Joe Rogan will come out and just say Trump 2024, baby. I have no problem saying it because I have no fear. I do not fear what people ultimately think of me for giving my opinion. I am not concerned that if I give the wrong opinion or come out too strong, it will cause a negative political impact. I don't care about politics. I care about culture. I will tell you what I think when I think it. I think Donald Trump should win. I think he's got problems. I got the one guy, and he was like, Tim Pool says Trump's bad, but he can't name a single reason why. It's like, that's actually far from the truth. Bad? Okay, an expansion of the drone strike campaign in the Middle East was bad. The removal of the transparency around drone strike reporting numbers was also bad. But while I do see some things are bad with the Trump presidency, it's a net positive. The idea that Trump did no wrong is psychotic. Of course he did. He's imperfect as a human being. And you can make the argument that the reason for the increase in drone strikes was so we could pull our troops out while maintaining air superiority, which would eventually allow stability in the region without a U.S. presence. And I can understand that. But I do believe commando raids in Yemen that allegedly killed an 8-year-old American girl. These are bad things. 59 Tomahawk missiles fired into Syria, not a good thing. You can argue the selling of weapons to Saudi Arabia, also not a good thing. There are things that Trump did that are not good. Hiring John Bolton. I have no problem telling you that I think these things. And you can say I'm wrong. You're allowed to do it. But what I think we need is, I'd be willing to bet, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Joe's not that guy. I'd be willing to bet behind the scenes, Joe Rogan's like, oh, I'm voting for Trump, no question. He said, I'd vote for Trump before I'd vote for Biden, which is a light way of saying he's going to vote for Trump. And perhaps Joe is scared that if he comes out outright and says, I'm voting for Donald Trump, and here's why, he's scared that it'll ostracize portions of his audience. Maybe. I can't tell you. I don't know. My view is this. I don't know what Joe is thinking. Maybe, Joe's a genuine guy. He's a good dude. So maybe this is the world he lives in, a comedian, not a news guy like me. For me, if I say I'm voting for Trump, so I get someone to go, I can't believe I used to listen to Tim Pool, now he's voting for Donald Trump. Bye. I'm not going to lie. If you expected to watch this show or any of my other shows waiting for me to lie to try and pander to a large audience to make more money, you got the wrong show. I won't do it. I'm going to tell you what I think. And I don't know what to expect, but I think Donald Trump is the guy for the job. Here we go, baby. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thank you all so much for hanging out. Become a member at timcast.com. Buy Cast Brew Coffee. Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience will be retired after this final run. So that means whatever you end up buying of the Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice, it will never be available again. As most of you know, Mr. Bokus yesterday passed. He was a good little friend and kitty to the Cast Castle. But, it is what it is, and we were all very sad. We gave him his little funeral. But go to castbrew.com, pick up your coffee, and we'll see y'all at 1 p.m.